Happy Sunday, everybody. This week we learned about short-term memory, and there's like a whole lot more that goes into short-term memory than you would think about, which made this chapter pretty interesting. But one of the most interesting things to me was Ebbinghaus. Don't know if I said that right, but that's fine. And he is credited as the first person to do an experimental study to learn about the functioning of the memory and like the capacity of the memory. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that today, and yeah, let's go. So basically his experiment was he did this experiment on himself, which is like really cool to me. But he went and made lists of a whole bunch of nonsense syllables, and he went to try to memorize them. And he made sure that these syllables didn't hold any association with anything, so he could make those associations in his brain, that he would just purely have to memorize it, which is a genius concept. That's great. But what as he was doing it, he learned that it would take him a little bit of time to memorize these lists, depending on the length of the syllables. So basically, what he found was that if it would only take him like 6 or 7, sometimes less, sometimes a little bit more, tries to memorize lists with 7 unrelated syllables, or 7 or less, somewhere around that area. It would only take him a few tries, but the time it took him to learn about 7 unrelated syllables, it took him significantly more time to do anything more than that. So it would take him just about as much time to learn like a few, and it didn't take him a whole lot. Words. It didn't take him very long to learn 7 syllables, but it would take him so long to learn, I don't know, like 10 or 12 or 16. It would take him significantly longer, and that actually comes up again later in history, which is really cool, and I'll talk about that in a second. But he also came up with this system called, I don't think it has a name, but it is like calculates how much your brain is saving, like your memory saving. So what that is that you take the original time it took you to learn the list, you subtract the time relearned later after some sort of delay. So that could be minutes, it could be days, it could be hours, it could be, it varies. But you subtract the relearning time, and then you divide all that by the original time, and then you'll get a decimal, and so you'll times that by 100 and get the percentage of how much information was saved. So I thought that was really cool. I kind of like math, so maybe that's why I thought it was cool, and other people probably didn't. But anyway, so where this pops up again later in history is when George Miller is he's the big name when you're learning about like how much storage you have in your short-term memory. And so that pops up when he says that we can learn 5 to 9 items in our short-term memory. And so that's like, that's just 7's the middle number there. So that's kind of where that pops up again. Just Ebbinghaus was the first person to really discover that. So I thought that was really neat. But then you also find that when you chunk information together, you are able to remember that better. And I feel like that makes sense in our daily lives. If you think about when you're trying to remember something. If you remember, let's say for me, I remember phone numbers in chunks of like 2 or 3 numbers, and because those are easier for me to remember, and if I kind of sing them, I can remember those better. I don't know why, but that seems to be it. So that's chunking, which is a definition. It's also known as recoding. But chunking the information, it'll together, smaller pieces, it'll allow you to remember the bigger thing. So I just thought that was really cool. There's just, little things about our memory that we just don't think about. Obviously, we're remembering things and recalling things, and all the time. Obviously, every little action will go into our sensory memory and then our short-term memory, and then, depending on certain aspects and stuff like that. But just, I thought that was really cool that it was about 7 things that we can remember in our short-term memory. We can hold there to remember unless we do something with it or we don't, and then it leaves us or it goes into our long-term memory. But I thought that was really neat. And yeah, that's what I got out of this week's. Thank you.